episode 17 or something. But so yeah, it's been a bit of a hectic, crazy, turbulent week generally over, well, across everything with the Trump tariffs, with the kind of trade war setup and what's happening on the kind of macro geopolitical scale. It's all very, very complex and very up and down and all over the place. So there's been quite, I'm not sure about you, Chris, there's been quite a few of my friends and family have been checking in on me over the last week on the Bitcoin dip, you could call it potentially, but it's not really. It's just part and parcel of what happens when things, change, when markets kind of take a bit of a downturn because of something that happens, and that Trump has sort of instigated these tariffs, particularly on China, which is the major factor. I think there's a lot of chaos, a lot of kind of confusion across what's happening. And as you said beforehand, nobody really knows what's going to happen with these tariffs. How's it going to affect the markets? How's it going to filter through into, especially small business? From my point of view, the small business aspect of this within America, specifically with the tariffs, it's going to impact a lot of small businesses very negatively, I think, if it continues. So I'm not sure what your take is on the whole thing, Chris. What are you seeing now? What are you making of all this kind of market chaos, the Trump kind of move with these tariffs? What's your take on it?
I'm more interested in your take, Alan, because it's driven you to the pints already on a Friday afternoon after work. So
Well, yeah, it's a nice. I think this is the last. Is this the last day of the nice weather?
yeah, it is. We've had
Supposedly.
a good streak of it. So yeah, you might as well. I'm drinking a green tea while you've got a pint in your hand. So,
Well, it's
but
not a pint. It's
yeah,
only a small can of IPA. It's
yeah,
I just
yeah.
randomly took it out of the fridge.
Yeah, no, nice, and it's nice to do in the good weather like that. I'm going out for dinner later, so maybe I'll send you a photo of whatever choice of drink I have.
Yeah, well, I had barbecue at the in-laws, so yeah, it's all
Okay. Right, okay. It's all happening then. But yeah, what's my thoughts? A lot's happening very fast. I can't keep up to be honest. Obviously amongst being busy with other things, it's challenging to keep up. I think again, it was cliche to say, but zoom out, like there's nothing really drastic happening. Nothing changed in Bitcoin. Bitcoin's still Bitcoin. I think I seen a tweet a while ago in 12 months, like Bitcoin's um I can't remember what percentage is up. Like I think it did 100% in 2023 and 100% in 2024. Like huge gains, back to back triple figure returns. Like the perspective is like Bitcoin's going to keep doing what it's doing. As I say, I'm not an expert in tariffs. I think are probably a new thing for Bitcoiners to learn about as well because you do learn a lot along this journey as well. Um, but it, it seems to be done purposely to try and cause a bit of chaos in the market. Now, what happens in that chaos as well is that a lot of the very trusted assets before are showing volatility that they've never had in recent terms because everything was very stable. Now the Trump administration has come along and thrown a lot of that up in the air, and I think it proves like, and I know you're saying it's a dip, and you're kind of being coy about that as well. It's a dip. It's not really
good.
anything unusual, for Bitcoin, and it's not even that much of a dramatic drop. It does seem to be stabilizing out, and compared to some other assets, it's actually
Mm.
performing very well. So, yeah, again, I'm never worried. Like Bitcoin hasn't changed. It's going to follow its own path. It's got its own trajectory. These things have to play out, and I think again, over given enough time, people will realize what Bitcoin is, and I think it's going to be on the world stage very soon as the only trusted global asset. Like you can't trust any other asset. You can't trust U.S. bonds now, which were the safe haven, because it looks like countries are selling them off because you know can you trust president that's things are changing daily, and it's affecting the bond market. Stocks as well. Obviously, the tariffs affect stocks because it's company cash flows, future cash flows. No one knows how that plays out, so it's uncertainty. So there's a lot going on there at the moment. But again, Bitcoin's just Bitcoin. It's doing what it's supposed to do. It's producing a new block every 10 minutes, self-auditing process, and yeah, it's it's doing what it's supposed to do. And
Yeah,
and I think it is going to make the world stage very soon. I think people are waking up to the fact that nothing else can be trusted.
yeah. No, I'd agree. It's funny. It's just again, I suppose I can't remember what day it was. There was the main stock market dip. Was it Monday or Tuesday? I can't. Yeah, it was Monday, was it? Yeah. effectively there was a bit of a sell-off over the weekend through Bitcoin. Obviously, financial markets, traditional markets, the markets are closed over the weekend. There's a specific trading period. Bitcoin's 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 a year. So there's no, and we've seen a couple of circuit breakers, I think, out in the Asian markets as well. Bitcoin doesn't have that luxury. It's a free market. It's freely traded. Anybody can jump in, jump out whenever they want. But I think it's that Bitcoin. Bitcoin will do what Bitcoin does, but I think I need to get better personally at, when somebody comes, I've had a couple of family members come and say, like, oh, Trump's wrecked Bitcoin for you now, that kind of comment. It's like, well, it kind of caught me off guard because I don't normally talk about that with the family members so much. And I was like, not really. It's just one of those things. Like the market's taking a tumble, the stock market's down. Although funny, we did see that kind of mild decoupling action with Bitcoin as well, where it wasn't really following the same kind of trend as the traditional type markets with the stocks and especially the tech stocks. They took quite a big hit, whereas Bitcoin was holding up and it was actually up at one point in time. So to be honest, again, it's the whole concept of zooming out. Like over a short period of time, you will have turmoil, you will have turbulence. It'll go up, it'll go down. It's a natural kind of dynamic, especially with Bitcoin when priced in fiat money terms. But as Bitcoiners say, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, and that will never change. And I think that is the thing for me and what we're doing with Emerge 21. It's trying to get people to understand that and trying to really dig down into the weeds and weed out all the noise that's happening and that doesn't really impact Bitcoin on the long term. And it is something, my approach to again, friends, family, potential clients that we bring on, it's trying to really, galvanize that idea and really kind of drive that home and not to be, driven by fear or emotion because a lot of people, that's what happens. The fear and the emotion kick in. They kind of just get caught up in the whole frenzy. But then again, you step back, a week's passed now, the stock market's leveled off again. Obviously, Trump's set I think it's a 90-day kind of break or pause in tariffs across many countries. Obviously not in China. China is the main kind of adversary for the US in many respects, but it's just really, gaining that understanding. And it just doesn't faze me now. Any of this stuff doesn't faze me simply because I know what Bitcoin is, I know what it does, I know what it's going to do in the future. And it doesn't change. It's just something that's so sort of ossified now and robust. It doesn't really faze me so much when markets take a massive tumble or there's chaos and turmoil in the world, which we will probably see increasingly more of. I know there was the announcement a couple of weeks ago that the EU are bringing out the CBDCs trial back, or is it in October time this year, 2025? So that'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. And that's again something that we'll need to kind of talk about and get people more kind of aware of what that means and what that is in comparison to what Bitcoin is. So there's lots of turmoil, lots of chaos, but I expect that to continue through 2025, really, and probably into 2026 as well. But it's knowing what you have and knowing where to really put your wealth and your money in those periods of time. Although I've seen a few tweets and reports that a lot of people, there's been a big kind of flight to the Swiss franc and gold over the last few days. Gold's hit an all-time high, hasn't it,
Yeah,
recently as well? So
yeah, multiple times recently. Yeah,
yeah.
it's performed very, very well, and I think that's a sign of things coming. I think that's probably the old guard of the financial system defaulting to what they know. And again, while Bitcoin is here, I was going to take a share of that, but more and more over time, it's going to take a larger share of the safe haven asset. But yeah, it's been interesting. But yeah, I've seen the Swiss franc stuff as well. That's backed by gold, isn't it? Some of it, or it's
I've no,
different setup. It's
I've
not
not.
it's not a purely fiat currency from what I understand, but
Yeah, it's funny. It's something I'm not entirely sure. I must actually look at that because it's interesting. But you're probably right. There's got to be some kind of Swiss kind of gold back, aspect there, really, with the fact that they store a lot of the world's gold, in Switzerland. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure on that, Chris.
yeah. But the one thing that I see is that I think people are putting too much faith in humans again, and look, I think Trump and his administration have formed a strong team. Like on paper, likes of Musk, but what do you call him, Scott Bessent, whatever way you want to say it. Lotnick, all these guys have huge backgrounds, financial backgrounds. but there's a lot of variables in the world to try and control the economy if that's what they're trying to do. Now, I don't fully believe that they're trying to, bring down markets. No, I think they are, sorry, trying to, in part, but I don't think it's the main reason, bring down the interest rates, show that if there's weakness, interest rates should come down. There's a lot of US debt that's going to roll over, I think 9 trillion this year, 27 trillion over a couple of years. That needs to be refinanced at a lower rate in order to give them more flexibility. But what I'm trying to get at is like they can do it on their end, but then there's other countries involved in this. This is a global like it's a global economy these days. You can't account for what China or Europe or other people are going to react to. Now, people can still say that Trump is playing, the 4D5D chess game. But I'm not entirely sure that anyone in any position, no matter how much backing the US has by having the world reserve currency, the strong economy that they have, they can control, the rest of the world because it's a certain size of the financial world, albeit significant, but it's not everything. And people will react differently. Like who knows how these tariffs are going to work out? Could be reversed. I don't think so. Definitely will be modified, I would say. But it'll be a kind of different world then. And he does have his vision of manufacturing in America, and I don't think there's anything stopping that. How it happens, how it's implemented and if it works out is a different matter, but there's going to be unknowns. There's going to be winners, there's going to be losers. But this vision that, the US are manufacturing all this, or engineering all this financially for their own gain and it's according to plan, that's impossible. It's purely impossible. And that's why, again, I can't control what other people do and say. Like, would I invest in bonds for the long term? No. Would I invest in certain stocks and indexes in the long term? No. That's why I invest in Bitcoin because I know the outcome. It's very predictable, and what Bitcoin's going to do over the next few years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that bringing the manufacturing base back to America, that's going to take years. Like you're going to take 5, 10 years for that to kind of
Good
have
idea.
any impact. Uh,
I think it's the right idea.
it's the right idea, but then I think the problem is with, again, you're listening to a few people talking about this and the fact that America have really pulled back as far as, trying to dominate on a global scale to be back more and sort of encompassing a more regional kind of power, just really and effectively retreated back into themselves, so to speak. And the problem is, I think only 15% of exports from China go to the US of their total amount. So, that is a relatively large portion, yes. But if China says like, we're not sending anything out to the US or whatever happens, it's not going to impact China as much as it will impact the US. So, I think the US are kind of positioning themselves, especially with the likes of Musk and all the kind of technocrats and in areas of power within government as well, which is maybe a good and a bad thing in a couple. Well, you could look at it different ways, but I think they're developing more of a kind of an AI based and AI driven, kind of they're going into the whole crypto thing. They're trying to create like stable coins and things on the blockchain for their own real kind of benefit, not the American people's benefit, but the people in power's benefit as usual. So I think there's going to be it'll play out. Like again, you can only preempt what's going to happen. You can only really, make decisions on what you can kind of perceive what's happening. But again, thankfully we have Bitcoin now to not have to faff about and trying to figure out where to put your money or your wealth. Whereas before, prior to Bitcoin, you'd have been slightly in a bit of a bad place, I think, thinking like, what are you going to do with your money? Where are you going to put your money? But it's just when you go into the whole geopolitical global thing, it gets very, very confusing for many people. Like I listened to a couple of people that break it down really well, and it makes sense. But then somebody else has a different perspective on it too. So it's nobody really knows. It's, you got to just again try to follow the money, I think, as best you can, because I think that's what's driving the culture in the world at the moment. From wars to like, tech companies, how they're developing things, how AI is developing. But like AI is, I think we'll talk like we're going to be doing a lot of stuff around AI as well. I think going forward, probably looking at what's happening because it is driving a lot of manufacturing, a lot of jobs, businesses, industrial sectors, financial sectors, just across the globe. So Bitcoin and the marriage between Bitcoin and AI is quite an interesting concept. But I really do think America is going to be more driven by AI development, all these silicon chips, rare earth minerals. I think that's one of the reasons why they're considering the whole Greenland thing, the Ukraine. It's a bit of a mess, but it's obviously all these minerals. Who can control that? And then you've got ourselves where we're located in the EU in the kind of Eurozone. They're kind of in no man's land, and they're going to be firing out the CBDC. And it's going to get, I think this year, towards the end of this year into next year is going to be quite turbulent. So I'd say, as the term is, which is overused, buckle up. But
Mm,
I think people need to really pay attention to what's happening and try to figure it out and ride the kind of rough seas that are going to be probably happening over the coming months or potentially a year and a bit.
yeah. I, I can see two things happening that's sing the Bitcoiners hard truly, and I suppose not every Bitcoiner, because switch on the money printer, great for Bitcoin. If you're holding it, great financially, but it usually does wreck a lot of people as well. It's saving in fiat currencies. But I think when you said follow the money, when you do the calculations and math, money has to be printed, to sustain this, and that's going to happen. Just when it's going to happen, and I think all this chaos might actually speed it up. Like it's not sustainable in its current. Like I'll just give you a brief example. Stock market's obviously down. Stock market has to perform. Stock market works off liquidity. So does Bitcoin. Like it performs based on liquidity. Not only, but quite a lot of it is. But if you keep um having a non-growth approach to your economy, so say for example the US, say, yeah, we're not going to switch the money printers on. We're going to try and financially engineer our way out of this by using Doge as an example to strip back costs and find out fraud and stuff like that. If people's stocks and the S&P 500, we'll just use as an example, if that doesn't perform, a lot of people's income is based on that as well. People cash in stocks and shares throughout the year as part of income to make future investments as well, and that triggers capital gains. Capital gains is a big percentage of the income for the US. If stocks don't perform in a year, the receipts from the government to the government are less, so that widens the deficit as well. So there's all these things to consider, and like that's a very simplistic view of it. There's a lot of moving parts in the budget for the US, but inflation and money printing is part of this daft game that's being played at the moment, and it will happen inevitably. And I do think that as time goes on, more and more people are going to start understanding what Bitcoin is and why that is the hedge against, I'll not say inflation, but currency debasement. Like as people are starting to print more currency, Bitcoin is the answer to combat that. So yeah, it's inevitable. I think that that's going to happen, and I do think it's going to become more center stage. I don't want to give a timeline, but yeah, over the next coming years, I'll say.
Yeah, it's being like again, usually the media sort of pry on the negative news when Bitcoin like drops by maybe say 5-10%. It'll be on the news. It'll show the story, and I think that's what caught people's attention. The stock markets had crashed and stuff, and then they brought up the Bitcoin thing as well. That it's gone down by nine, whatever it was, percent. I think it was over 24 hours or so, but like that's not unusual for Bitcoin over the course of its history. That's not unusual. So it's just again having that more longer term time preference, and not and you can like I got sort of sucked into the whole thing as well. You can get very short-sighted on it and like get a bit kind of panicky around it, and then that's what happens. People kind of sell on emotions, or you hear that all these stories people have they buy maybe bought in Bitcoin at maybe 90, 100,000, and it dropped to maybe 72 or 74, whatever it may be, and they've sold, and then it flies back up the next day by about 10%, and then they're kicking themselves. So yeah, don't get emotionally driven by the fiat price of Bitcoin. Just earn your living, earn your money, and put that money into Bitcoin or any spare cash you have potentially for savings. That's basically the kind of mantra over the longer term as well. So it's yeah, just a very kind of chaotic time. And again, if you look, most people like again, if you're not really paying attention to any of this, then that's fine. You're going about your day-to-day stuff, which most people are doing. But this is the kind of stuff that does drive, it drives a lot of, so global kind of throughout history, big events that change and shift how finance works, how markets work, and how like currency debasement happens. And then, things change. The potential world reserve currency, the US dollar, that could be and probably is looking like it's kind of running its course now. And what's coming along to replace that? Well, what we're thinking is Bitcoin effectively. That's the best solution from our point of view and from many people's points of view. So there's a lot of stuff at play at the moment, and things could change very dramatically and very quickly over the course of the next year or so. So it's just a matter of really keeping in tune with what's happening, or just having a general awareness. And again, that's what hopefully we're here for, to kind of give you a wee bit of a kind of dip your toe into the chaos, to kind of try to make sense of it, and try to be calm about it as well, because I think that's very, very much the key point, is stay calm in the chaos, and just be assured that, Bitcoin's got your back.
Yeah, I don't know. We're only doing a shorter episode, just a kind of market update today and sentiment update for what's happened over the last while. But I think the setup for Bitcoin couldn't be any better right now. I honestly mean that, and I've kind of started to tweet a bit more about it. Like Bitcoin becoming the global reserve currency, it being the only trusted global asset. Like you can't trust any of these other things over the long term. Too many decisions being made by humans, whereas the whole point of Bitcoin is it's a decentralized system. And I couldn't be any more bullish on Bitcoin again over the next few years. Don't know what will happen in the short term. I'm actually pretty bullish over the next 12 months, I would say, on it. But yeah, anything could happen again. But when you look at the US, they've kind of they did say as well that they're going to look at budget neutral ways to stack Bitcoin essentially, and when maybe that global race for Bitcoin, which will inevitably start, this might actually be a kickoff for it as well. As
Hmm.
I say, I can't see any other reason. Well, there's no other like there is no second best trusted global asset. Like there isn't. Uh, like where it's inevitable in my opinion, as
Yeah.
long as obviously Bitcoin stays as it is, and that's what we said at the start. Bitcoin hasn't changed; it's doing what it's doing. As long as it stays that way, it's on its path.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as it's decentralized and secure, it stays like that. And every day it becomes, the word ossified, it becomes harder and harder money in many respects. It can't be, it's just harder to attack. The attack vector reduces so much over time. So it's just really, being aware of that, definitely. And again, going back and not harping about AI, but going back into to the fact that everything's being driven so much by AI now. It's only at the infancy of it in many respects, but that will accelerate so much over the next 2 to 5 years. Things will be dramatically different. And Bitcoin effectively is, because there's no human trust or no human involvement there. It's all a protocol that can't be changed. The only answer to using money, using AI combined with money, is Bitcoin. And anything else is not decentralized. There's always a centralized entity or somebody who can manipulate or control it. And with AI coming into play now in the bigger picture, Bitcoin is the solution to the money supply and the money use globally as well, borderless global money, which is trustless. So yeah, again similar. I'm very bullish. Like again, the world will be very chaotic, I think, in the coming years, 1, 2, 3 years potentially. But again, I don't see any real shift or any real change to my thesis around Bitcoin or what's happening with Bitcoin. It's going to again outperform pretty much every other asset, over the course of time, more or less. But that doesn't change over the course of the short term either. Even with market turmoil, and Bitcoin potentially shifting by numerous percentages on a daily, weekly basis. That's just Bitcoin. So yeah, really kind of interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks, months. But yeah, it doesn't change the difference. It doesn't change our opinion or thoughts around Bitcoin or how that's going to impact the world going forward either. So yeah, I think we'll probably won't run on much longer, Chris. What time is it?
No, I think we could wrap it up there.
Hmm.
Yeah, we kind of touched on the core points that we wanted to touch
Okay.
on. And I suppose the one thing that we people generally lose track of in this is the building around Bitcoin. The applications, all the businesses that are starting up, like that. That's a huge focus. I think cheat code's on actually. Is it
It's
today?
on today. It starts today. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. So like there's always lots happening, like and that's the focus, like the community is stronger. The layer twos, the applications, the ecosystem around it is stronger, and that's where the focus should be. You can
Yeah.
watch the price, it's not gonna do anything for you. Like by
No, it'll just stress you out and pull you, make your hair go gray quicker. But
but I
yeah,
do think there's some positives in terms of like there's gonna be winners and losers, but this chaos is gonna, I think, bring Bitcoin more into the spotlight
yeah,
over years, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. Like it makes more sense to me now than it's
yeah.
as a global reserve asset than any time in history.
Yeah, there's more of an assurance there that's it's more inevitable, more or less, in your mind. It's more galvanized that way. And it's this concept, the term is creative destruction. Bitcoin thrives on that. The creative destruction that's happening at the moment, Bitcoin's there to be the solution for that. So, but yeah, building around Bitcoin, shifting your business structure towards more of a Bitcoin-centric business. There's so much positivity and innovation happening within the community, within, the building on the different layers, layer two, layer three. Lightning Network, Liquid, and with Nostr and all these protocols that are being built over on top of the same concept of what Bitcoin is. It's really exciting. And I think again, the big term is decentralization for me is the thing that needs to be brought to the world for various aspects of even for healthcare, for various financial institutions. Decentralization is probably the kind of game changer that really allows freedom for people in the future. Whereas with all the centralization and the continued increased centralization of all these technologies and all the financial system, even within healthcare as well, it gets a little bit strange if you play that out in your mind and you didn't have this decentralized opportunity to move to, then the world turns into a bit of a strange place. So yeah, thank goodness for Bitcoin, and it brings hope for the future in that respect too. So yeah, very hopeful, very positive about what's happening with Bitcoin, and just trying to be aware of the chaos, but just remember, Bitcoin's doing what it's doing. Every 10 minutes it creates a block, and that can't be shifted, that can't be changed, and it's just where that's going over time, and that's the thing you can be positive and assured about. So all good otherwise. So we'll leave it
Interesting
there.
times ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Positive, interesting times ahead. Well, enjoy the rest of the beer, Alan, and we'll catch you again soon.
Just one wee
Keep
glass.
holding
Yeah.
the whiskey.
No, 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 no. I was up Freddy. Yeah, we haven't got onto the whiskey yet. Maybe just ease myself in on a podcast to that. But yeah, so like yeah, enjoy the nice weather for the next few hours, and then it's gone. So that's the summer over. Anyway, we'll leave it there. My child's just looked in the door, so yeah, better not come in. Oh, he's gonna come
Time
in.
to go.
Don't
Time to
look
go.
at it. Cheerio.
All right.